My name is Peter Weddle. We use these roundtables as a way to get some of the smartest people in recruitment technology and talent acquisition to share their views, share their insights and wisdom on some of the most important issues facing employers and job seekers. And today is certainly no exception. We are going to talk about whether the TA solutions industry, job boards, talent technology companies, AI-powered solutions, whether those companies have a trust problem. And that's clearly an important topic because trust is really the glue that holds our industry together. It keeps employers and job seekers engaged with us. And recently, there's been a spate of surveys suggesting that job seekers feel that they are being undermined by false job ads, fake job ads, and by the use of AI technology to separate them from employment opportunities. Employers are increasingly concerned about whether recruitment technology products are helping them get work done or making it more complicated. It's all a challenge. And so I've invited 4 folks to join me up here on the virtual stage to talk about that topic. So if you all will please come up on stage, we'll get started. Okay, I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves. I would not do justice to their experiences and credentials. So Joe, if you'll go first, please tell us a little bit about yourself and Lensa.
Sure. First of all, thank you, Peter, Stephen, for having us. We appreciate it. Big fan of TAtech, as you know. I have been in the recruitment advertising space since 1998, which probably for many viewers, they weren't born yet, I'm sure. But started my first job board in 1998, had a background in tech, and currently Chief Revenue Officer of Lensa. Lensa is a mid-tier career site focused only on the United States in terms of both job seeker and employer audiences, and great company. Been here about 8 years, and certainly super passionate about everything related to recruitment advertising from both the job board, the employer, and even the job seeker perspective. So very happy to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
You bet. CLARA?
Hi, thanks, Peter. I'm CLARA Yarnot. I'm the founder and CEO of Meritage Talent Solutions and the author of the Talent Trifecta. I've been in the industry for pretty much 3 decades as a TA practitioner, a corporate executive, and now as a consultant. My company helps organizations attract, select, and retain the right talent. My perspective here really is from the TA leader lens. I care about technology, I care about the candidate and the recruiter experience, but really from that perspective of how it helps bring the right talent into and keep them in the organization. My bias really is that we're looking at this as a business process, a marketing process, a human decision process. And when we forget one of those, the trust really breaks. So that's really the perspective I'm coming at from today.
Okay, thank you. And Natasha.
Good morning. Thank you, Peter and Stephen and the gang for having us here. I'm excited for this conversation. My name is Natasha Nuytten. It's much easier than it looks. It's very Belgian. And I'm the CEO and co-founder at CLARA. We're an AI-powered, I think everybody's got AI in there somewhere, skills-based hiring platform. And we really mostly serve mid-market companies and smaller companies. Lots of companies that are not quite sophisticated enough for huge technologies, but who need something powerful to get the job done, but don't have a budget of $250K a year type of thing. So I have zigged and zagged. So this industry I've been in now for a couple of years, but 3 to be specific. But the through line for me has actually been in developing people and building trust and relationships. So I spent 15 years mentoring and doing family therapy and family work early on. And so this notion that that sort of trust piece of what we're doing in this space right now is busted is right in my wheelhouse. So excited to be having this conversation with everyone today. So thank you for having me.
Well, that's a great segue into the first topic I'd like to cover, which is job seeker trust. And there have been a number of surveys suggesting that job seeker trust is down. For example, Live Nation's 2026 Trust Deficit Report found that 45% of HR pros admitted to posting ghost jobs, and 69% reported responding to candidates without notice. Now, TA solutions companies can't really be blamed for those behaviors, but oftentimes they are. And when that happens, trust in the companies, in the sites they operate, go down, in their solutions goes down. So my first question to you all is, are you seeing similar kinds of reports about job seeker trust? And are there other problems other than fake jobs and recruiter behaviors that are leading to this trust deficit?
I'll take the first stab, given the fact that Lensa has about 31 million job postings, and obviously we know that that's pretty inflated given the current open job numbers in the United States. But I think from our perspective, we make our money by talking to people like CLARA and trying to obviously connect her with great candidates. We are seeing really interesting statistics all over the place. So, I mean, you mentioned about ghost postings. We've built some AI tools to try and counter that, but a majority of our business is helping other job boards find registrations and also find applications, in addition to employers and recruitment ad agencies in the U.S. There is just a proliferation of ghost postings, geo-expanded postings. We are now being much more particular about the job postings that we take. And of course, AI makes it quite easy now to look through 6 million jobs from another job board or provider and filter those out. Recently, we've seen a phenomenon, surrogacy jobs. So you can actually rent a person to have a baby for you, and the income is $115,000. And these are job postings that are circulating around the internet. So you have job postings that are certainly not real or geo-replicated, but in addition to that, the various work from home gig jobs, it's becoming more and more challenging to ensure that you're offering quality job postings to your audience. Lensa has about 20 million job seekers. We send 10 million emails a day and 2 million text messages a day. And being able to filter the garbage in to ensure that we can still try and add value to our job seeker audience is becoming substantially more difficult. And I think even with some of our premium corporate clients, we're really struggling because they're complaining that job postings are basically returning nothing but automated applicant noise, pretty much. They want to stop paying for premium job slots and subscription models because there's so much garbage coming into their ATS. Certainly job boards can try and counter that by lifting Cloudflare scores, defining what a quality click might be. We sell a majority of our revenues made on clicks on jobs, and also using turnstiles to verify humanness. But it's definitely a big challenge for sure, and that obviously degrades the trust that job seekers have in us, and therefore with the employers that we represent as well.
I definitely agree that the problem is real and that trust is essentially gone. And from a job seeker perspective, they lump everything together. Employers, job boards, applicant tracking systems, every tool used. They're not like us in the industry who see these as distinct categories. They don't care. We're all the same. And we have trained them not to trust us because of ghost job postings, because of, we have pay transparency laws all over the US that say you have to post salaries, and then employers go out and say the pay for this job is between $40,000 and $120,000. And what is that? And so there's all of these things. And then we don't get back to them for reasons. I'm not here to defend that behavior because that is ridiculous. I'm actually working on a committee that's developing ISO rules for TA, that this is the first thing we're tackling. So we're working on it here inside our own industry. We're doing this ourselves. And so there are a lot of those things that are happening. But when the question is, what can TA solution companies do about it? I mean, there's a lot of things you mentioned there, Joe, but I would say, as to the TA solution providers that are listening, I would encourage you to, stop acting like, neutral inventory systems and put more things in place that help the job seekers identify who are the true honest players in this industry. Like, post things like, what is the response rate from this employer? Is it 10%? Is it 80%? What is it? So people can say, this is an employer that actually gets back to people. I'm going to spend my time dealing with them. Who are the people that actually post reasonable salary ranges, not ridiculous salary ranges? Put scores up. Do this to incent employers to play by fair rules, because employers don't want, to your point, Joe, they don't want more applicants. They want better applicants. They want the right applicants, and we have to incent them to change their behavior to increase trust. So there is a role, for solution providers to play in encouraging employers to change their behavior here. We can't make them respond to everybody. There's probably things we can opt into our workflows in your solutions that make responses automatic, and they have to take steps to take them out versus take steps to put them in, because believe me, employers are lazy, and if it take steps to remove things, they're not going to do it. If it takes steps to put them in, they are not going to do it either. So those are things that we can design into systems to increase activity and increase trust in the process.
Yeah, I mean, plus one on all the things that you all have said. I think it's, it's just this massive world of tech on tech crime right now, from both sides of the fence. And the reality is that there is and I'm going to get into it probably with some capitalists in the group. I am a capitalist as well. However, there is a social element, right, for capitalism to be as practical and as functional as possible. So being a successful business person, having an organization where you're bringing people in, you do have a responsibility to the other side of that equation. And I think it's really important that we don't lose track of that. And, the reality is, to Kara's point, there needs to be more transparency. And if people aren't going to do it, if businesses aren't going to do it, regulation will, right? We know, like, just June 2nd, New York just passed a law that said, you have to tell me if this is an active, current open role. That is not going to go away. It's going to become more and more common. Some of our global partners, there are already those expectations that the government says business has to show up for the people who are doing the work. And so I think those things are really important. We can't lose sight of them. And when we think about the nature of trust, it really comes down to doing more than is expected of you rather than doing the least amount possible, right? So businesses, rather than saying, hey, I don't technically have to get back to you, I don't have to do this salary range, or I can do, the widest range possible, whatever the case may be, just do better, right? And the win there is it's great for not only the people who are in that funnel and engaging with you, but that's just great brand recognition, right? So it's a win. Like it's wasteful and sort of very short-sighted, in my opinion, to not do better by the people who are going to be coming into your organization potentially. So,
and it's interesting too, because I think there's a bit of hypocrisy to some degree, from employers. I mean, obviously we hear job seekers, like, there's in the application or in the job description will say, you're not able to use ChatGPT for the interview process or the application process, because you want to assess real skills. You don't want surmise skills from an AI resume. But at the same time, we have employers that are, and I think, Kara, you said it as well. Unfortunately, some employers, maybe lazy is a harsh word, but they're trying to be more efficient. And so there's, the outcome maybe appear to be lazy, but they're trying to just get more done with less. So, and then at the same time, you have these job seeker tools. There's hundreds of them out there, a number of them where they're almost like job seeker concierge, where they find the job, they'll start the conversation, they'll put the application for you, or there's massive apply tools to just simply spray like a billion resumes. So, employers don't necessarily trust the applicants that are coming in with a perfectly formed resume, and every cover letter seems to have the same sort of structure because everybody's using the same AI model to write their cover letter and their resume. It's very difficult for employers today to really gauge true skill. And even if you do assessment exams, they may be using some assessment tool on the back end. And all you have to do is go on TikTok and Facebook, and you can find these tools, and they're $9 a month. And some of them are taking advantage of job seekers and really don't give any real competitive benefit. But at the same time, employers are using that same AI. So it's a sort of a catch-22 because we tell job seekers, hey, we want your true, authentic self. And we want to know that these skills that are on your resume, you legitimately have. But at the same time, you have employers that are kind of creating these gates and using AI to automatically filter people who may be quite qualified for the role. So it's really, I think when these bots automate like high volume blasting and matching, the overall ecosystem, but certainly the platform just decays, right? And for us, it can threaten our core business model because we're trying to drive applications to employers at a reasonable cost per application. But for us, we are not even sure if they're a legitimate person or if the job description was written by AI and the seeker has an AI cover letter and resume. How do we ensure that we can even match both sides of the marketplace together directly? And even from a P&L perspective, we have to store this data, right? Our biggest cost at Lensa is our cloud storage. So now we have sort of garbage jobs from some employers and garbage applications coming through from bots that are representing human beings. And it just simply costs us more, but we don't really gain any real value, which is try and help job seekers find great work with great employers. So it's a really interesting time, and I think it's going to get worse. And I think, Natasha, you made a really good point. The job board doctor, Julie Sowash, wrote a really great article the other day. I don't know if anyone had a chance to read it, but if not, you should, where there's even brand hijacking. If you go on Google for jobs and you look, I think she used Pepsi as an example. There's jobs listed for PepsiCo, Pepsi Cola, but there's not even plants in those particular cities. And so people, some job boards will simply use those brands just to harvest registrations. And it so immediately erodes trust from the job seeker perspective. And then, of course, Pepsi doesn't trust the fact that their brand is being utilized properly to drive good applications into the system. So I think it's always been a little bit broken-ish, but now with AI, it's exploding, I think, in my opinion. And there may need to be, and I hate this because I'm an anti-regulation person, there may need to be a set of Department of Labor standards. If you look at the EDU space, I don't know if you've played around with the EDU generation, many schools and universities now have very strict rules around how they can acquire leads. And that's actually designed as a result of multiple lawsuits. So I think some regulation in our space could be good in terms of behaviors of employers and certainly job seekers and job boards to create a set of regulations that at least become a baseline to sort of rebuild some of that trust that certainly is going away pretty rapidly in our space.
Yeah. I think one of the issues is we're sitting so far downstream, right? Like we're talking about these problems that are here, but the reality is like for us to be more efficient, for us to solve some of this problem, we really have to go further upstream in the process. And that requires time and an intention, right? To be able to start thinking about like, hey, to your point, you were talking about skills, Joe. Well, most organizations just really don't even know what skills they need. First of all, they don't know what they have in their organization. They don't know what the job actually requires. The jobs are changing, right? We're asking people to use AI, but then we're punishing them for using AI in the application process. But isn't that the type of person we need to have in our organization because they're willing to be tech forward and they're going to pivot and learn? So we can't really be talking out of both sides of our mouth, right? Like we need to be a little more thoughtful and intentional about who we need to have in the organization so that we can be specific. So to your point, there's all these garbage job descriptions they've been used for the last 15 years. They've never been changed. Nobody has any idea what they actually mean. And then you get into the interview and you're like, none of that we've just talked about is what you told me I need to have. And so I think there needs to be a couple of steps backwards and like, all right, let's clean up the mess, right? Because now we're just building crap on top of crap on top of a crap foundation. And so if we're just going to continue to deliver the same busted systems that look at credentials versus actual abilities and skills, we're just going to be doing that faster. So we're just amplifying the problem. So what we really need to do is hit pause, and very few organizations, frankly, are willing to slow down to speed up, but that is what it takes. You have to be intentional about what are you trying to accomplish in the next quarter, the next 2 years in your organization, and back into, okay, now the skills that I need are those things. And so therefore, when I write my job description, when I partner with my tech companies out in the world, whichever piece of the process they're in, they're actually helping me find who it is I need to find. So there is a responsibility of like better information, right? Better intention, so that it helps minimize the noise. And none of these things are a silver bullet. Like not any one of these things is going to solve the problem entirely, but orgs have to be thinking about, okay, here are the 6 or 7 things that we need to be doing to make this better for us in our space and in our industry and with our partnerships, because every org is a little bit different. And so I do think there needs to be a responsibility, a mindset of around responsibility to do better.
So I struggle with the fact that everything that we've talked about is perfectly logical, but it requires a foundational change in the way that HR operates. You know, Natasha, to your point, you got to be a little bit better at succession planning and workforce planning, I should say, and you need to be better at translating those skills into actual repositories of jobs that you're going to recruit for. How do you address that kind of a situation? I mean, I'm a big advocate for pulling talent acquisition out of HR and having as a standalone function, reporting directly not to the COO, but to the CEO with a dotted line to the board, because I believe organizations today and into the future will not survive without AI-ready top talent. But short of that kind of, monumental change, is there any way we can improve the situation, even in an incremental way, so that we begin to nibble away at regaining the trust, both of employers, by the way, who feel by this AI doom loop that you've described, of trying to fend off literally tens of thousands of resumes, or I should say applications, for jobs at the same time that job seekers are trying to wind their way through AI filters. At this point, I think some of us feel like throwing up our hands. I mean, this is just too big a problem. Help me find a couple of incremental steps we can begin with.
This is CLARA.
So Peter, So, I feel like, Peter, you were eavesdropping on a conversation Natasha and I had about 3 weeks ago. It does start with what Natasha, mentioned, is understanding the skills behind the roles that we have in our organizations. And there are tools out there that help us do that. Natasha has one of them. There are others in the marketplace, and that's that help you truly understand what those skills are. This is something we have been talking about now for some time. It is coming more to the forefront, and I see we have some practitioners on our chat here. Bonnie, thank you for the from Peter's mouth to God's ears. TA should not be a part of HR. I've been advocating that for some time. Executives need to understand that, and they need to be advocating for that as well. If we understand what the skills are, and we can understand what the tasks are involved in a role, we can understand what those skills are. We can start looking for people with those skills. And then the ultimate holy grail is, in a lot of the vendors on this call, probably Joe included, don't want to hear what I'm about to say, the resume goes away. We are no longer working on resumes. We're working on what are people's skills, and we need to find a different way to match skills to roles. Notice I don't say jobs, because roles change and things evolve, and AI is going to help us do that. And as talent leaders in organizations, they need to start thinking differently about what are the roles and what are the tasks that are needed to get the actual things done inside organizations, and it's going to be much more fluid. And you can start that. I worked at Boeing, for goodness sake. At the time I was there, were 160,000 employees. You can do things in what we call pilots, and you find little pockets, and you find the executives who get it, and you start in small chunks. And if you're a small organization, I have a government contractor client right now that does AI work for the three-letter agencies in the government, and they want to know that applicants are using AI in their process because they have AI jobs. And so they want an AI detector to find out how much AI people are using, not because they want to screen it out, because they want to screen it in. And so, there's a lot of things going on in the process here. And so they are looking to redefine what are roles and what are tasks. And there are people in the world doing this. It's most likely the customers that are in Natasha and Joe's wheelhouse, not the biggest employers in the world, because they're like turning an aircraft carrier in a pond. That takes a really long time. We start with the small and medium-sized employers who want to work in this space and are looking to be revolutionary in how they do this, and we learn from them. This is how change happens. It's not going to happen inside the workdays of the world. It's going to happen in the organizations and the tech companies that are a part of TAtech. And we look at, and Jason just has the comment on here, right? TA is a revenue generator. We look at and change the mindset here. We generate revenue for the organization all the time. Without people, what are you doing? And when robots start hiring robots, then I'll get out of the business. But that's not the case. We're still humans hiring humans. And AI can help enable that, and they can help us figure this out way faster than we ever would have all by ourselves. It can enable the business, and it can enable the judgment needed, because it gives us the data much more quickly, and it categorizes it much more quickly than I could do with spreadsheets. Back in my days of running workforce planning at SAIC, a 40,000 person company, where I walked around with spreadsheets in my hand about employees' capabilities and drove myself nuts. So
careful, Kara, you're dating yourself there. Be careful.
I am. I told you I was in this space for 3 decades. You all can do the math. So it is entirely possible, and we have smart minds like Natasha and like Joe in this space, that if we as an association get together and talk about how we're going to revolutionize together instead of in our own little silos like we have traditionally done, we can make a difference, and we can bring employers like Bonnie along with us. So we just need to make those coalitions.
I think what's really interesting here, and there's definitely, we're talking about a micro industry in a macro challenge, is what is the truth, right? What is real? What's not real? We struggle with that, and it seems to get more and more cloudy every single day. I mean, like if you have AI tools that are basically handling everything from matching to portfolio or resume generation, hiring managers are struggling to verify portfolios, and basically it drives an aggressive shift back to sort of expensive, rigid like background checks and strict like internal referrals, or to really validate, do these people have skills? And of course, with hallucinations and potential liability as a result of those hallucinations, when companies deploy like AI communication tools to engage the seeker and start to extract answer candidate questions about compensation and so forth, and remote work policies and cultures, even on the employer side, there are inherent risks there, obviously, in both hallucinating on the job seeker side and the employer side. And I think it's interesting because there have been people that have dabbled in blockchain in the past for resume creation. Doesn't mean that we have to go back to more rigid ways to test and validate skills and have third parties do that in a way that can't be compromised or cheated on. Is it a one-time password? I've seen a number of sites where before the application process even starts, you have to put in your cell phone and get a code back, just like you do when you log into Google or when you have to go to your authenticator app. It almost needs the industry and even our personal data sets and skill sets need to be much more solidified with the use of real technology so that I can ensure that the job I'm applying to is in fact Pepsi Cola, right? And the skills that I'm representing on my resume or dossier or portfolio or CV, whatever you want to call it, are legitimately mine and have been validated by a third party, not only through testing without the use of any tool to assist or game the test, but also triangulate with other folks that have worked with me in the past that can say, yes, Joe has these skills. And so it's going to have to be, and I'm not sure what body is responsible for those regulations, but I think it's a much bigger problem. And I think it's going to get worse. We don't know what is true anymore. If employers don't know that their applicants and what they're representing themselves is true, and the job seekers don't know that the job they're applying to is actually a legitimate recruiter, not a bot faking a recruiter simply to get financial information from them, this trust is going to continue to erode. Peter, maybe that's a job for TAtech. I don't know. It's a big ask, but ultimately we have to find the truth. We have to figure out how to validate on both sides of the equations. We probably only have 3 to 5 years anyway until AI kills all our jobs and we get paid a living wage to stay
Stop
home.
it, Joe.
So, I don't know. That's the only thing I could think of in terms of answering your what is the solution question, Peter.
Well, I think fundamentally, if I might just say one thing about this around trust, is that trust is a very human to human sort of thing that we're talking about. And we have to, in the businesses that we're in, extrapolate and sort of extend the umbrella to businesses, right? And on both sides of that equation, whether it is employers needing to trust the general public or it is the general public needing to trust employers. And the reality is, I know there are a lot of stats about how Americans do not trust AI right now. It's a part of a much larger fundamental societal shift around a lack of trust in government and agency and community and all of those things. And we would be, just really unwise and short-sighted to pretend that all of those things are not impacting the level of trust that people have in the technologies that we are using in our organizations and the processes. And I hear a lot of people, and I have even said myself, that hiring is broken. This relationship, the amount of friction is broken. And the reality is, I've had to shift my thinking because I don't think it is. I think it's giving us exactly what it was designed to give us, which is credential spotting and, aligning to the last person who did the job. And it does an amazing job at that. What it doesn't do for us, and this is why all the folks on this company who are either in a position to build a product or service an organization, or people who are in organizations using these tools, it is why it is incumbent upon us to do the work to figure out what we need to do better, right? We have to make a shift because our processes are only ever going to continue to deliver the same BS we've built them to build, unless we decide we want something else. Right. And if trust and transparency in the hiring process as a fundamental first step to building a great organization and having the right people in our organization is important to us, then we need to make it important. And we need to partner with tools and other organizations and our colleagues in the space to make sure that we're doing that if that's what's important. And then processes need to reflect. I think to Kara's point, it is a very large job, right? It is not something we're going to unpack quickly. However, things are happening so fast that organizations need to be intentional. They need to move as quickly and as thoughtfully as possible and as far upstream as possible to make those things happen. And I think we're not in a position to be able to pass this off onto a government agency, onto bigger organizations. I think something, Kara, you said earlier around the size of the organization where change is going to happen first. Most of us on this call, though there are some, and I don't know everybody who's on here, but I'm guessing 1% of businesses out in the world have enough they're making enough revenue and they have a big enough profile of the CEO that they get to impact policy, right? National policy at this point. Most of us are lucky if we can influence the policy in our own house with our own kids. Right? So the reality is we have to work where we live, and that change will ultimately be what makes the larger shift in our business and more nationally. And so I think it's really important that we don't shy away from that responsibility.
And I think that's a really good point, Natasha. I'm glad I heard Joe mention the Job Board Doctor article, because I'm going to go read that, because PepsiCo is a client of mine and I was not aware of this situation. So they're going to be my first email when I get off of this session to find out what they know, because they are an organization that is large enough to have some influence in many, many places. And I'm sure they're aware of what's going on, but I am curious about their stance and how they are changing things if people are spoofing their jobs and eroding trust, because while they have an amazingly strong brand, they also have trouble hiring, because I'm helping them build global sourcing strategies. They need them because they have challenges in many areas, including hiring people with AI skills. So this is enlightening for me. So thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. And then your point, Natasha, about organizations that can have influence. I want to talk to them about that. So this is fascinating.
Well, thanks to all three of you. It's been a fascinating conversation. I've certainly learned a lot. I'll go back and read Julie's article as well. She got a lot of promotion in this show. So, Julie, well done. Obviously, this is a topic that we can deal with within our own little operational space as best we can to build trust with the employers with whom we work, as well as the job seekers whose careers we influence. We can take those small steps. I think ultimately trust is, as you were saying, Natasha, also in our industry, an artifact of what's going on in a larger sense in our culture. So we have to be aware that there are limitations to what we can accomplish. But at the end of the day, trust is the essential glue, as I said at the outset, for our industry. And I think focusing on it, working on it every single day is the only way that we're going to make any legitimate progress. So again, thanks to the three of you. Thanks to all of you who attended and commented in the chat stream about the event or about the conversation. We do these thought leader roundtables once a month here at TAtech, so we'll be doing it again in July. Please come on back for that one as well. And every single week we do a webcast on one topic or another, and I hope you'll come back for those as well. So on behalf of all of us here at TAtech and my guests, thank you very much for being here, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.